design specifically set upon a unit, body, or faculty in order to implement financial, or in our case, educational success. The parts of the system work together in order to achieve the common goal.
According to the corestandards.org, quote, "The Common Core is a set of high-quality academic standards in mathematics and English language arts. These learning goals outline what a student should know and be able to do at the end of each grade. The standards were created to ensure that all students graduate from high school with the skills and knowledge necessary to succeed in college, career, and life, regardless of where they live. 42 states, the District of Columbia, 4 territories, and the Department of Defense Education Activity have voluntarily adopted and are moving toward with the Common Core." End quote.
It's now time to discover how the students, teachers, and parents of the West Islip community have been directly affected by Common Core.
Did you notice a significant difference between the learning styles of Common Core and regular teaching?
Yes. 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 Yeah.
Yes.
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 Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
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 Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, you got a lot harder.
Yes, it's two different styles of learning. At first, the kids had a little bit of a adaptation period where their skills maybe needed to get a little bit higher, but we were starting to notice that like the kids that started Common Core at first grade, by the time they get up to us, their skills are much higher now and they're able to handle the more rigorous problems.
Common Core, it's pretty bad. It has its benefits, has its disadvantages. Melissa?
Definitely with math, it was a lot more focused on the tests we were taking at the end of the year, and it was very rapid-paced kind of thing. It wasn't more about how much in-depth we go into the knowledge, rather that we would just skim over the top so we'd be able to regurgitate it on the test.
Back in the day, a lot of teaching was based on teacher-centered, but the teacher in the middle, and they teach out to the students. Now, the Common Core is all about being student-centered learning, giving the students the tools for them to learn, and they more discover the lesson on their own.
I took foundations in 10th grade, which was preparing me for regular trig, and I got to 11th grade and it was Common Core trig, so I didn't know anything. The class was useless.
Common Core is much more challenging, and it pushes me to do better in math, and it also gets me ready for further mathematic situations in life.
They really do kind of push that with the actual advertising, and they want you to know that it's different. So yeah, I've seen the differences, how things go with the way they teach. It's significantly different. It's just I don't know why they're changing it, honestly.
Common Core was a more compound thought process, where the regular one was just thinking abstract.
Common Core was way harder. I could not handle it. The amount of work and just useless, busy work that we had in Common Core was way more than we had in regular.
I think that Common Core is a lot harder and a lot more standardized than regular learning.
I noticed that it was definitely harder, but in the long run, it will definitely challenge the students to become better.
The director of mathematics, Ms. Sapansky, stated in an interview, "I think Common Core is good in the long run because if it's done correctly, it lets you think outside the box."
I noticed that in Common Core, the teachers were kind of confused by it because it was kind of just thrown at them, and then that affected students, their learning abilities.
The reason why our teachers were confused at first while teaching Common Core is because they were not properly prepared to teach the course. According to Ms. Sapansky, your elementary teachers were trained in Common Core, and secondary was trained in the content of Common Core, but not the methods of Common Core.
Was it more beneficial?
No, not at all.
Not really.
Definitely not, no.
It wasn't beneficial.
No, not really.
No, I think we should
change?
No.
No, it negatively impacts you because you have to learn two different ways of doing math, and instead of preparing for one, you have to prepare for both ways.
I don't think so. I don't think the rapid pace really helped a lot of people because it was less focused on the understanding of the material and rather the memorization of it instead. And in the future, I definitely think it won't help people.
No, it's not more beneficial. We should definitely eliminate it in all public schools.
No, I don't, because it does hurt student self-esteem when they don't do as well, and I think that the teachers are more angry about it because they don't get to do their own style of teaching.
You rolled it out to us when we were in 8th grade, and it's like we've been learning something different our whole entire life, and you implement something new when we're in 8th grade, and now we have to learn something completely new. Like, it's kind of dumb the way that you rolled it out, in my opinion.
Noticed in our interviews that students frequently agreed that this new implementation was difficult and an unwanted change. There's a common repetition, similar to that of Adorno, that students do not like change within their educational work culture.
Although students realize the possible benefits of Common Core, they feel that it is more involved and challenging. As Ms. Sabansky said, it is not just formulate and spit it back. The older students have always been accustomed to a type of learning in which reasoning didn't matter. It was just about finding the answer. Now, we can tie Common Core into Adorno's culture industry because the new industry of mathematics, according to Ms. Sabansky, is more like the SAT, where there is reasoning and application, and that is why it is harder.
It's probably more beneficial, but it sucks still.
I think it's making students like work together more, like getting them involved. But at the same time, it's like harder, more work.
In the long run, yeah, I think the Common Core standards are good because students are able to accomplish tasks that are more real-life based as opposed to things that are maybe a little more basic.
I think it actually is, but I think it's been hard the way it was implemented because we had kids in high school that were learned being by teacher-centered, and then we were trying to get them to discovery learn, and they had a hard time interacting with their peers and discovering things on their own. But I think as we see the younger kids come up, them discovery learning themselves, it's going to help them later on because they're going to be more independent, and I think it will be a great success.
Did you think the new curriculum was harder?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, a lot more.
Yeah, I think it's much harder.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah.
I did horrible at it.
Yes.
Yeah, I did, because it's like teaching someone English your whole entire life and then talking to them in Italian for the remainder of your life. It's like, wow.
Do you feel like Common Core is more thought-provoking and beneficial in the long run, or is it negatively impacting students?
I think it's negatively impacting students.
Negatively impacting students.
I think it's negatively impacting students.
Negatively impacting. Negatively affecting.
Negatively affecting students, I feel like it's pretty discouraging.
I feel that it has been negatively impacting the students.
Negatively impacting students.
I think it's probably negatively impacting
It
students.
has a negative effect on students.
It is negatively impacting students because I don't understand it at all.
I think it's negatively impacting them because it's a lot more added stress for a class that really actually doesn't mean anything outside of high school, because it's kind of preventing them from actually learning the material. Like it's so focused and driven. It's almost like an AP class with Common Core with just the pace of which you learn stuff. Like kids aren't actually retaining information.
Because it's this new standardized way of teaching rather than like allowing teachers to have their own styles and influence students in more like creative ways. It kind of forces them to be a certain way and evens them out and doesn't have any new interesting effects on students.
I think the way that they're implementing it is the main problem. Like, it's okay to change the way that we're learning, because obviously if it's a more effective way of learning, that's great. I just don't believe in changing the style of learning while students are still in school. I think it should be started from like kindergarten up, like that. I feel like that's a lot more effective.
Restrain students, I think. That's what to think outside the box.
People are taking it different ways. I personally didn't like it. I know a lot of teachers find it more beneficial because it's a bunch of different ways to do one problem, but I think it's hurting a lot of students.
I think it's hurting students' confidence when it comes to their intelligence, and they should implement more ways to increase the students' self-esteem so they can achieve in the future.
Similar to other students' reasoning that Common Core has a negative effect on the confidence of students, Ms. Sapansky feels students would be better off with a pass-fail class. She says that this way, you're learning math, you're learning for the sake of learning, and you're not worried about, oh, what if I get a 70? There's a lot of pressure on the number part of the grade. Common Core is designed to learn for the sake of learning. It can be discouraging. I think that if you didn't have the stress of the test, I think that people would appreciate what they're learning more and be able to apply it better.
Well, it takes away individuality. It promotes a type of singularity-based learning where we all learn the same stuff, which I don't really like. It doesn't really promote individual thinking.
I would say negative because that's my opinion, but I feel like it can benefit other people.
I mean, for like in like kindergartners, I feel like it's definitely like a different way of thinking because it's providing like more evidence, so it's like all right, but for us it's really not like beneficial.
If we focused on Common Core instead of both, I think it would be beneficial in the long run.
I think it's going to have a positive effect for the students in the long run.
Positively. Because the questions are just more like you have to think about the answers.
I think that students just need to learn a new mindset that the answer might be harder to get. They might have to try different approaches and they might not all get hundreds, but if they stick with it, then eventually it is beneficial to them because they'll have skills that they'll be able to bring to college and to a career.
Yes, I think it is more thought-provoking because it's not just plug and chug, like here's the problem, get it done. It's more, all right, let me think about the process. How do I do it? And it's not, and everyone can do their problem a different way. So I think in the long run it will help out our students.
So I think it can be beneficial if used appropriately, but I can see how kids are frustrated.
I think in English it is same. It has always been very similar to what we used to teach, so I do not notice much of a negative impact in English, but I think in the other subject areas many students do struggle, and in that case then it is negatively impacted.
I think it helps them think better and outside of the box.
I don't know, I think it's just frustrating them altogether, so I don't think it's beneficial. I think there's better ways of getting their answer. They have their students breaking down their math problems. It's taking them an extra long time to get their homework done, and when they could just do it in a more simple way, and all this stuff that they're asking them to do now, they're eventually going to do as they move up in their lives through the education process. Right now it's sometimes a little bit too much, and that's why it gets really frustrating for them.
How might have Common Core been implemented differently in order to be more beneficial?
It should have started at the younger grades first and then moved up each year rather than being pushed through all grades at the same time.
However, Ms. Sapansky does not agree with this. She states, "Some people say that they should have started in kindergarten and worked its way up, but I don't agree with that. That means that it would be a 12-year change, and that's ridiculous." She also states, "I think that had they not made the test so difficult, I think that the rollout would have been so much better. Then they tried to tie the test to teacher evaluation, which makes no sense at all."
Not to have the test.
Sapansky agrees that the test can be stressful for students. She said in the interview, "I think that if you didn't have the stress of the test, I think people would be able to appreciate what they're learning more and be able to apply it better. I am all for a pass-fail and get away from the number part of the test and just let's focus on, can I do this? Can I apply it? Where do I apply it? And what's the real-life applications?"
Do you feel it challenging helping your children with homework that's Common Core?
At times, like, math questions the the way they want them to answer it can be a little difficult, but conceptually, I think it makes sense what they're asking, but at times it is challenging.
What do you think about helping your siblings with Common Core?
My brother was in kindergarten and he had to label all the parts of the eye, and I don't even know those, stuff like that. Like, we didn't even take science till like 5th grade, and my brother was all through his beginning years of elementary school labeling the parts of the eye. They have an entirely different counting system in subtracting and adding. Like, you need to like add 10 to certain numbers and then subtract off of that. There's no just knowing your facts kind of thing. You have to write out questions in math and explain why you did them, things like just regular subtraction.
So, how is your child reacting to this new style of learning?
It's been hard. The English has gotten better with the Common Core, but the math, I feel like the speed in which it's been taught has been a struggle for them.
My oldest child, who's a junior in high school, she was one of the first years that went through the changes, so I think she and her grade suffered the most because they had to learn both styles, and the transition was very difficult and they weren't ready for it. My youngest children, who are in 8th grade, they grew up with Common Core, so the transition hasn't been as difficult.
She's doing really well at it.
There are times when they don't understand what they're doing. It is frustrating to them at times because there's so many different ways that they're doing it that parents don't understand, and we can't help them, so we get frustrated. Parents get frustrated with it as well.
Back when I went to elementary school, we only learned English, math, science, but it wasn't all this big. It's all common, all one specific idea into one area. And I just think the kids are, it's the math and the English, they're getting taught totally different ways than we did years ago. And it's not, I don't think it's helping the kids.
Similar to the opinions of teachers we interviewed, Ms. Sabansky states, "That's the problem with parents and teachers. None of us learn this way. For me, I had to go back and learn the Common Core methods. It was an extremely difficult change."
Did your child participate in taking the state tests, such as the ELAs state tests?
In elementary school, my children opted out of the state tests.
No, I opted them out.
No.
No, they didn't.
During the interviewing process, 3 teachers from West Islip High School declined to be interviewed for this specific question regarding state tests.
Why or why not did you feel this test was necessary?
I did not feel that it was necessary because, first of all, for the math, it's been very difficult. They've had a really hard time with the math since they started the Common Core in kindergarten. So I felt like it wasn't a true assessment for either of them, and I really don't think that they should be evaluated on just one test.
I didn't feel the test was necessary because it was developmentally inappropriate, both the English and the math.
Not getting graded on it. It's not beneficial for them.
The reason I feel like it's unnecessary is because the teachers are teaching the whole year, and then we're crumbling all this information into the last part of their curriculum. And for what? It's a test. Some kids aren't good at taking tests, and I just don't think it's fair that we're giving these monster tests and putting so much pressure on the kids at a young age.
Do you think your mom will decide to opt them out?
I don't think my mom will decide to opt them out because my mom doesn't really know much about the whole American education system, and this is like the first time she's going through Common Core, so he's probably going to end up taking all those tests.
What do you think of when you hear Common Core?
Probably deaf.
I think of angry parents.
I think it's terrible.
I don't think it's necessary.
More challenging.
I think it's dumb.
Actually, I think it's ridiculous.
Difficult.
Sucks. Common Core is just harder.
Just tests and a lot of people complaining. That's the big thing, really.
Dystopian movies where all the people are forced to live a certain way, and they're all forced to live in camps and stuff where they aren't allowed to do anything creative or anything, like that movie with Christian Bale, Equilibrium. That's what Common Core makes me think of.
Ultimately, what we have concluded is that students, teachers, and parents dislike the change of curriculum in schools. Due to the sudden change of curriculum, most find that the work culture of Common Core is challenging and time-consuming.